I want to welcome our speaker, Keith Pratt. Keith is a friend of the university, a member of the Legends of Lawrence Tech Board of Directors, and is someone who is making his second appearance here in the Entrepreneurial Lecture Series, and we're just delighted to have Keith. Keith is an industrial management graduate, and he is developed his own company, and he's going to talk to us about his entrepreneurial journey and some of the successes, some of the challenges along the way. And of course, in these economic times, we have our challenges, but I think with tenacity and perseverance and the commitment that many entrepreneurs have, we're all going to get through this. And Keith is going to share with us not only the experiences that he's had, but some very challenging design and machining issues that are faced in the products that you see in front of you. So I'm going to let Keith start out and tell the story. We will have time for your questions, and I'm sure that he will welcome the questions. And Keith, if you would. Thank you for being here.
My name's Keith Pratt, and before I start, really, I want to talk about what I hope to achieve here, and that's really to give everybody an idea of what it's like to be in business. I'm not really going to get into a lot of the philosophy and why you do certain things, but I'm going to really kind of give you a summary of what my last year has been like since the last time I was here. A little background, I own a company called Shared Vision, and we are a contract machining company. We don't really have a product of our own. We machine to print for various customers. We intentionally go after things that scare other people away. I'll show you some of the things we make. This is a Williams International is one of our big customers. This is the center section of a turbine engine that goes on mainly corporate airplanes. This little piece went to Mars on the Martian lander. The thing, it was like a big balloon that crashed into Mars and opened up. This is part of the mechanism that made that happen. One of our big customers makes a Predator. And this are both part of the Predators. This is part of the landing gear, and this is a propeller housing. All in all, we probably make a quarter of the parts that make the Predator. Now this is a telescope housing that went out into space. It's part of a new weather forecasting system that's being developed. This was a ring that was sold to the CIA that went into space in one of their satellites, and I'm sure if I knew what it was, I wouldn't be here today. But it's the V-22 Osprey, the plane that takes off like a helicopter and flies like a plane. This is part of the system that actuates the engines rotating. And this is a gearbox that goes along with that. Pretty complex geometries. All of these are made from solid, so there's a lot of challenging geometries that go into what we do. We picked this kind of work, one, because it's fun, and two, there's a lot less competition on this kind of stuff. There's just not many people that can do it. Excuse me. I'm going to start out with a little background, starting in 08. 08 was a spectacular year for us. It was the best year we ever had. We were just growing. We grew probably 50% over the year prior to that. And our customers around July all came to us and said, 09's even going to be better. Expect to grow 30% next year. So we took the opportunity to really leverage the company, and we invested a huge amount. We bought about $4 million worth of new machinery. In a company my size, that's a pretty significant investment. It was leveraged. I had to sign my life away to do it, which I did. And things were good. I had a person running the business for me. I was still active, but starting to think about retirement. Our bank said we were the best customer they had. We were one of the few that were still doing well, and they slowly deteriorating economy. And I really started thinking about retiring. My wife had retired, and she was spending the winters in Florida, and I'd kind of like to do that with her. So that's the way we came into '09. One thing before that, I was on a golf outing with my financial advisor in September of '08, and he made a comment that it looked like all the cards were stacked up for the economy to take a big fall. And that was really what I wanted to hear after I just invested all this money and signed my life away. But I didn't think very much about it. Business was excellent. So '09 came along, and we went from, we were doing about $1 million a month, which is pretty good business. And within about a month, our business dropped off 60%. And that made a dramatic difference in life at Schwartz or Shared Vision. I said Schwartz Industry. My business is actually made up of two different companies, so the names kind of get used universally. So if I say a different name, excuse me. So with a 60% decrease in sales at a point when you're fairly highly leveraged, it had some pretty dramatic effects. Really, the first tough decision we had to make was to lay off some people. And in a small business, pretty much everybody's your friend. And most of the people we had were valuable people, and they were all people I liked and didn't really want to see anybody go, but we were faced with reality that we were not making enough money to pay our bills. So the decision was made. We were going to have a layoff, and we wanted to go deep enough so we didn't have to continue to do it. The last thing you want to do is have people looking over their shoulders wondering if they're next. So we made a dramatic cut. We had 75 people, and we let 20 people go. And we figured that was going to be the end of it. As it turned out, we had 3 more rounds and cut very deeply. We're now about 30 people. So it was really tough that way. I am technically a Florida resident, and even through this, with my wife in Florida, I took a trip to Florida in May, and had to get away, and it's just needed to go see my wife, and it's a trip we typically take every year anyway. While I was in Florida, we were out in my boat one day, and I started to spit blood, and turns out I had cancer. So coming back from Florida, I had a business that was on the rocks. We had vendors that were unpaid. We owed, well, I don't want to get into numbers, but we owed quite a bit to our vendors. We had taxes that we hadn't paid, and the bank was starting to get pretty anxious. So we had to do something more serious than what we had already done, and I hired a turnaround expert. And he came, pretty highly recommended, and we amazingly were able to put together deals with our vendors, so we were never faced a suit, and we arranged a deal with all of them to pay them back as we can on a pretty determined schedule of that, and that's worked out well. The bank, in this particular economy, the banks have really changed the way they do business, and they really don't appear to like to lend money anymore. I was in a pretty bad situation because I had guaranteed most of the money that we borrowed from the bank, and they had the option to call back the loan at any time they wanted to, and to have to come up with that kind of money would have been very difficult. I had actually gone into the point of talking to liquidators, liquidating the company, and it looked like if I had liquidated my company, I would probably still be on the hook for about $1 million. So it was a pretty lousy situation. And all this time I was getting chemo, and I was going twice a day for radiation. And I actually got to the point where I couldn't even talk for a while. So it was one of the less desirable parts of being in business. So at basically 40% sales, we operated almost at the point of a dysfunctional company. We had people. We used to have a CFO. We were now splitting those functions amongst us, and actually, we learned how to be pretty efficient at what we did. Things that used to take 2 or 3 people, we've learned how to do with one person. So through all this, I finally got through my treatment in October. And the idea was, I had this person running my company for me, and the idea was to go to Florida and recoup probably until about now or February, March, come back and get back into it. And I got to Florida, and 2 days after I got to Florida, the person running my business, whose also the name is Keith, called me and said he was quitting. So it was, you know, you're wondering what was going to happen next. As it turns out, having him quit really wasn't a very bad deal. He did not get along with our chief salesman, and really didn't get along very well with the rest of the company. So I turned right around and came back and struggled into work every day. And actually, the company started to respond pretty well to that. And the salesman, who had kind of been dragging his feet as a revolt to this person running the company, started to produce again. And business started to pick up a bit at first, and continued to get better. And as the economy has improved, actually the business now, we have as much business on the books right now as we did all last year. And this year looks as though it could be the best year we've ever had again. And we're going to do it with significantly less expenses. So all of this could have really been a way of really rediscovering the business, operating more efficiently. The machines we bought back in '08 allow us, we standardized everything we did. We have 2 different kinds of machines in the business. Everything uses the same tooling. We have 2 different types, and any part can go in any one of its type machines. So it really makes scheduling much easier. Parts are never waiting for a particular machine to open up. So as we come out of this, we are in excellent position to really do well this year. With the benefit of hindsight, spending all this money right before the recession might not have been considered to be very smart. As it turns out, we are now probably the best equipped to do what we do in the state, probably one of the top in the country. So we managed to get through the downturn, as painful as it was, and we're sitting left here now with a situation where we can just explode this year. We are doing a slight different emphasis on what kind of work we do. A lot of these pieces, this for example, was a one-off part, and that takes your one of the effects of left with cancer is terrible dry throat. So that's, by the way, that's gone now, but I still have the dry throat, so I have to drink all the time. A piece like that will take your best person and tie him up for maybe 2 months to make a part like that. And you really can't make enough money to make that worth taking that person out of your system. So as great as it is for situations like this where I want to show what we're capable of doing, and as fun as it is to be involved in these projects, we're really trying to step away from that. And I would love to face this year with about 50 people. At 50 people, we would be very, very profitable. I'd give 50 people a great career, be able to pay them good profit sharing, and So that's really what we're gearing ourselves to now. We're still going to do exotic work, but the parts can't be a single part. And I think there's plenty of the exotic work we do without having to take on these onesies and twosies, and it just has not been profitable for us to do that. Prospects going on. Our sales force has increased. I hired another salesman who is very well connected. Again, we have got the best capital equipment that you can buy, so the prospects are excellent. I guess a couple of things I learned going through all this, really probably the biggest mistake we made, and again, the capital equipment, it hurt, but we struggled through it, and that came out great. But our biggest customer turned out to be about 70% of our business. And going into that, we knew this was a mistake, but this company kept on coming on and giving us more and more and more work, and it was pretty hard to turn it down. Just like a portfolio, we are doing everything we can to diversify and not have any one customer be more than about 10% of our business. Who knows what can happen to any one person? You could just have a falling out of friendships or something, and that can kill you. So we are actively pursuing other companies and other industries to diversify as well as possible. And it's, you know, we have the capability to work in any industry. We can do medical, we can do aerospace, we can do automotive, we can do anything. So we're going to take advantage of that and spread ourselves out in as many segments as we absolutely can. This has been a tough year, and I don't want to scare anybody off. I think being an entrepreneur is the best thing you can do with your life. My life has been wonderful. I've been my own boss. I've done what I've wanted. I've made good money. I've got a company I'm very proud of. I've given people a great career, and it's just been a wonderful life. But business is an up and down thing. Making money is not easy. And this year really proved that. There are a lot of good companies are not here at this point, and we've managed to make it through this and still be here. And all indications are we'll be here this time next year. And hopefully when I come back and speak again next year, if I'm invited, I'll have a more fun story to tell. But this is part of what being in business is, and it is. That's life. I'll take some questions if anybody has any.
Oh, my question is, will you ever have a public stock offering?
Probably not. I still want to retire. I've done this now for 20 years. My wife is retired. I guess that would be one avenue to maybe do it. What I'd really like to do is have an ESOP and have my employees buy me out. I've looked at that before. If I do that, we're going to have to pay off some of this debt first. If they're going to buy me out, they've got to be able to be successful at it, for everybody's sake. So it'd still be a couple years down the road, but that's really what I'd like to see happen. I mean, I'd never considered it as a stock offering. I don't really know in our kind of business what interest there'd be in it. I mean, machine shops are not the most exciting businesses in the world, even ours. So I wouldn't count it out, but I had never thought of it. Dr. Grace?
And just if you can elaborate more on how did you turn the company down? You were going like this, almost reached the bottom. How did you make it to go back? What kind of movement, what kind of decision other than laying people off?
Well, the going down, we did whatever we had to do. I put probably, oh my God, I hate to think what I put back into I probably put almost $1 million back into the company last year to keep it afloat. But I was, you know, and the thing that really made this whole thing difficult is in the middle of the treatment, I was taking so many painkillers and all, I was afraid that I wasn't capable of making a good decision. So I was sitting in these meetings with lawyers and the bank and all, and really afraid that I was making bad decisions. But you did what we had to do. We weren't making ends meet, so we had to let more people go. We just had to shed costs. We shed costs everywhere we could. Now, when things turned around, that's easy. At some point in time, growth gets to be as hard as shrinking, but we haven't achieved that yet. We had done the right thing enough with our vendors that they did not quit dealing with us. We were still able to get materials and all. Actually, now we're back on COD with most of them. For a while there, we had to see, we were back on credit with them. We were COD for a while. But we had been so careful on the shrinking that coming back, people were still anxious to deal with us. And work just started coming in and we started producing. So all of a sudden, money started to become available. And so far to date, we've brought a couple of people back. Most of the people that we let go are still available. And hopefully most of them will come back. But to date, it's been pretty easy. And I guarantee it's been a lot more fun. Going up is a lot more fun than going down. Yeah?
You're saying this person that was running the company while you were ill, what were some of the actions that he was doing that were causing such a negative impact with the employees?
He came from a company. He had owned a company in Traverse City and done very well, been very successful. And had some great ideas for efficiencies and all. Now a couple of differences between my company and his. One, he was making widgets, and he could basically sit there and shovel raw material into the machines and have them spit out parts. And some of his ideas did not translate very well to what we do. We're very intensive. I mean, the employees really have to be good at what they do. He was set up so almost anybody could make the parts. And that didn't translate very well with the employees, and he was not willing to listen to anybody. You know, it was his way or the highway. And coming in, I knew this was a potential problem. Once you've been your own boss and owned your own business, to come work for somebody else is not easy. I don't think I could do it. And, you know, I'm willing. I hire somebody in a position, I expect them to perform, and I give them a lot of leeway. However, it's still my company, and I've got the final say-so. And I think that kind of weighed on him. And he was the kind of person that probably carried a grudge out in other people, maybe, that he had with me. He had a very bad problem with our chief salesperson and wanted him to leave. And I just made it clear you can't do that. I mean, this person right now, we need all the sales we can get, and this is not the time to consider something like that. So it was just a bad personality issue. I mean, I don't know that it was his fault or the situation's fault, but I tend to bend over backwards. I'm willing to eat a little bit of efficiency and profit to having a fun place to work. I definitely believe your work needs to be fun. And I think he didn't share that philosophy, and people kind of resented him for it. So, yeah.
You mentioned that you made some of your processes more efficient, but also did you have to retrain any of your staff to carry out additional tasks? Or?
Probably the biggest, the things we did to become efficient. First, we standardized machines, and we did invest heavily in 5-axis machining. And I don't know if any of you have any experience with machining. A 5-axis machine is a pretty intimidating machine. There's stuff swinging all over the place. And there was some learning curve on that. Most of what we did to become more efficient was how we staged jobs. Just the idea of having 2 different types of machine allowed us to scheduling to really free up, and it just gave us a lot more avenues through the shop to run these parts. So it was mainly a procedural thing other than the learning the 5-axis machines. Luckily, we've never had a crash in one, and it amazes me that we haven't because there is so many things swinging around in there, but that's what you get when you have good people, and we've got great people. Yeah?
Do you find some of your best employees to be the most highly educated people, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big difference between what I do and what Keith from Traverse City did. His people, anybody could do anything. And that was his whole idea, was anybody here can run any part. I would like to achieve that, but it's really not practical. Yeah, my best people, I've got 2 people who are my main machinists. One actually came from the University of Moscow, was a mechanical engineer, master's mechanical engineer in Russia. And it's come, and it was just, he did, this piece here is just an amazing part. This is probably the best piece we ever made. Wasn't a single deviation anywhere on it. I mean, this thing is held to 1,000ths everywhere on it. There was not a single deviation. And the education and the understanding of materials and just programming is very complex. So really, in our business, not only do you have to be highly educated in programming and computers, but you have to be a very good machinist also. So it's a very wide range of knowledge that you have to be successful at this. I quit machining pretty early on. I could machine, but I was just not at the level these guys are, and my part showed it. So I really stepped away and let the guys who are better educated at it than I am do it. So in answer to your question, yes, education is absolutely imperative. And we have a good reversal plan to continue to educate people. Yeah?
What's going to be the future of your company after you retire?
Well, that's part of the reason why I want to do an ESOP. I figure these people, especially the people that are with me now who stuck, we staff, we all took a 70 or a 25% pay cut. My shop people went down to 30 hours. So these people went through a lot of hard times. It wasn't just me owning the business, it was everybody that worked for us. And they stuck by us and were loyal through the whole thing, worked hard, everybody pulled together, and I really feel I owe these people something. And an ESOP is a complicated thing to pull off, and there's a lot of downside to it. I'm taking a risk because I'd be financing the deal. But I really feel that part of the reason I'm still around today is because the people stuck together and saw this through. So I owe them something. And an ESOP, at a time when the company can financially afford to do it, I think is something I owe the people there. And the company is the people. I mean, without the people, it's a room full of machines, and that can't do anything. So hopefully the company survives. And I'm doing everything I can to see to it that it does.
I have one more question on one of the things that Don Reamer he has educated us on is the opportunity for the people that you have in your company to be entrepreneurs within the company, developing new process. Can you talk a little bit about how you have opportunities within your company, some examples?
I'm not really sure I necessarily agree with people being entrepreneurs. I think if they were truly entrepreneurs, they wouldn't be working for me.
We're talking about intrapreneuring.
Okay.
I think that's where we're going. We're talking about people that are innovative, that come up with new products, new processes. So I think that for corporate entrepreneurs, they're often referred to, and they feel comfortable where they are, but on the other hand, they are champions in their own right and have entrepreneurial traits. Maybe that's...
that's a better way of formulating it.
Again, I had said, typically the way I operate is if I hire somebody in a position, I expect them to do the position without me doing it for them. And it is actually kind of expected that people do that in our company. Every job that comes in, I mean, just figuring out how you're going to do a job like this, I mean, I look at that and I don't have the first idea how to do that. So it is encouraged, and it's actually expected that they are able to come up with new ways to hold parts, how to machine parts, new ideas in tooling. And I think at this point now, after as a couple of layoffs like we had, the people that are left, every one of them relishes to operate in that way. You know, these are all people that are artists, and they probably wouldn't be interested in working for me if we didn't get to do things like this. So they like the challenge. The challenges are there. Every part that comes in almost is a, you know, this thing, how do you make this? I mean, it is, I don't care what you've done in your life, that is a difficult part to figure out, but we do it. And I think part of the reason we're as successful at this as we are, we do some very complicated things. We do a lot of things that people can't do. And you wonder why can we do it and they can't? And I think a lot of it is that it's attitude. You know, I've got great machinists, but there's a lot of people that have great machinists. I've got great machines, but there are other great machines around. And it is the feeling that you are able to develop, the machinist can develop in his own mind how to do these things that I think has made us as successful as we are. I can't think of anything else, because while I do have great machinists, I don't say, you know, I don't have the only good machinists. So it is our attitude that people are free to develop these things that I think has paid off very well for us. Yeah.
You mentioned you were aiming your company toward more diversified customers. How do you tell a customer that's doing 60% of your business that you're only willing to do 10 or 20, and how did you come up with the 10%?
That is, well, that's a good question. I'm not sure yet. I think probably what you do is you start charging more so you don't win as many of your quotes, and that's probably the way we're going to approach it. How I came up with 10%. There is one of the things Keith from Traverse City had done in his company. They had originally, I think, 20 customers, and they cut it down to their 6 best customers. And I think maybe 10 is a better number, but the idea being that everybody you work for wants their job to have #1 priority. If you've got 20 people all trying to have #1 priority, it almost gets to be an impossible situation. I don't care who you are, you can't be that efficient. That due dates have gotten shorter. The amount of backlog you're allowed to have has gotten shorter, so there's a limit to what you can do regardless, especially with this kind of work. So it's a compromise between having one customer that has all your business, that when he asks you to do something, you can say, all right, but you've got to make a decision about which job you want to have priority. And then have so many customers that nobody is of particular significance to you. So it's really a compromise between those two, and I just picked 10%. I mean, it seemed like a reasonable compromise. Anybody else?
I was going to ask you, is there intellectual property involved, or processes or things that you've done that warrant protection in terms of process or product?
We don't have any patentable processes that we've developed, but we do have, actually we've kept a couple of jobs that we would have lost otherwise by refusing to tell our customer how we did certain things. And you know, we are not the cheapest game. We've never competed on price. We do have to be competitive, but we are by no means a low-cost producer. But if we told everybody how we did everything, we couldn't take the stand that we do. And the stand we do is that we're capable of doing this to print where maybe somebody else can't. But it's, you know, you're going to have to, that's worth something. And if we didn't have that, then we'd be more of a commodity and have to just price accordingly. So we do have some very clever ways of doing things that I don't believe are patentable or trademark or anything else. But we do keep them to ourselves.
A few years ago, you were sitting in the audience, and you're here, and your journey at Lawrence Tech, you know, Dr. Marburger is sitting here. He's known you for many, many years, our president emeritus, and the journey that you've taken. And maybe some of the students here in this audience will own their own business someday. Being an entrepreneur really isn't for everyone. And the journey is challenging and rigorous. I'm just wondering if there's any thoughts or any reflections that you could have as you go back through the years and kind of look at the time you were here at Lawrence Tech. Any advice or any thoughts you might have?
Well, again, I would encourage anybody to live this life. But I do realize, as I look back on my life, I started out at General Motors and spent a couple of years at IBM. Actually, I was at GM before I came to Lawrence, and then went through Lawrence and went to IBM, and then came back to General Motors. And that life is definitely a lot easier. You know, there's no question about it. It is, you can go home at night and pretty much forget things. Being an entrepreneur, at least in my situation, I've not been able to do that. Last year was probably the hardest year I've ever had, but it's not the only hard year I've had. After 9/11, I had just bought a company called Schwartz Industries, which was half of Shared Vision. And I bought that company right before 9/11 and paid a pile of money for it. And after 9/11, business just disappeared. So this has not been the only time in our life that I've been faced with the kind of situation I'm in right now. And quite frankly, I don't know that I can do it again. So it is not an easy life, but it is really rewarding. I mean, I look at the people that work for me, and they're happy. They're making a better living with me than they ever have before. They're loyal. We make beautiful parts. You know, I'm extremely proud of what it is we do. Financially, I've done great, but it is up and down. And it's, you know, I wish somebody had told me that before I got into it. But it's you will definitely face tough decisions and tough situations. But in the end, you know, I think, to me, working for a corporation was kind of gray. It was no terrible downs, but no particular ups either. Maybe if you were the chairman of a great company, it would be different, but I wasn't. And where I was, it was just kind of a gray existence. So I think being an entrepreneur is the only way to go. You have terrible lows, but the highs are just unbelievable. I mean, I've been able to do whatever I want to in my life because of Shared Vision. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Yep.
If I understood you correctly, I mean, it sounded like you said that you effectively last year didn't get paid, and you put $1 million of your own money then back into your company?
Yeah, quite frankly, I'm still not getting paid. And our turnaround person is still with us. He'll probably be with us for another couple of months. And, you know, I could take a salary now, but I just want to make sure we're in the situation that I think we are before I do. But the fact that I was able to put $1 million back into it is because of how well I've done with it over the years. But that is the situation. And, you know, at some point in time during last year, I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to put any more into it. As it turned out, I'm glad I did, because it's going to come back. But yes, that's the situation last year. And again, I'm still not taking a salary.
Do your employees know that?
Yeah, I'm pretty open with. I mean, that's part of the reason why people are as loyal to me as they are, is because I am very open with everything we do. I mean, there are some things that are not common knowledge, but for the most part, people are privy to what's going on in the company. They put in when times got tough, so I think they deserve that.
I I also like to just respond, Pete, to the young man asked a question about the ESOP. An ESOP is a way of financing or selling a company to your employees. It is the acronym for Employee Stock Ownership Plan. And basically what happens is the owner of the company, the founder of the company, can use this as a vehicle. And there are many companies that have used this vehicle. It has their various tax benefits for using this type of an instrument. But it's also a way of rewarding the employees. So I just wanted to explain that for you so it'll be helpful. I just wanted to mention that Lawrence Tech does have a collegiate entrepreneurs organization, and in that organization, Keith Pratt is serving as an advisor, a mentor, and we do have our next meeting coming up on January 29th. Pratt, and you want to stand up, he's a member of the CEO Club and actually coordinates all activities pertaining to information and our membership. So we do have an active website you can join, and there are a number of activities that the collegiate entrepreneurs are involved in now, and we're in the process of building the club. I did not introduce our Dean of Engineering, but many of you, of course, know him, Dr. Nabil Grace. I wanted to also welcome him and ask him to join me. We have a certificate of appreciation for our speaker, and we just wanted to have this certificate presented by our dean, and also mention that the same lecture will be held at 5:45 for those of you that
didn't get enough today.
We'll be doing this again. And I also like to express our deep appreciation to Keith for being here. It's a remarkable journey, the bitter and the sweet, but truly this is the entrepreneurial journey. You've heard it, and you've heard it from someone that has lived it. This is, it's more than a textbook. This is actual life's experience. So he actually mortgaged everything his own. It's probably his home, his firstborn, his mother-in-law, everything else that he could imagine to make this thing succeed.
Some of those are easier than others.
Go ahead and I'll...
Okay, thank you so much for everything you have done for us. As you can see, certificate for appreciation.
I just wanted to get a shot here. Thank you. Thank you so much.